Amy was 28 years old when she was jogging along the side of the road near the farmhouse where she was living at the time, over near between Verona and New Glarus. And she was struck and killed by a drunk driver. He was going too fast. It was about 7 p.m. in the evening, and panicked, and he left her in the ditch, to be found later on by her brother and her husband. They think that she probably died quickly, but for us it's been a horrible, horrible tragedy that keeps continuing. And the person that hit her continued, left the scene obviously about 6 o'clock in the evening, and they found her around 10, and he went to the car wash, and then he went home. And Amy was a really positive person. She was kind to everyone she ever met. She was an artist and crazy sometimes, but just delightful and everybody's best friend, and never could say a bad word about anybody. And she really wanted to make a difference in this world. And I think what changed the most is that we can be happy and laughing when, it's a funny thing, but we have this underlying sadness that doesn't ever go away. Nobody thinks that they're going to outlive their children, no matter what their age is. And it's, you long for her. You want her to be around and be with the family. And sometimes she's not spoken about because everybody's hurting. And so you have Christmas and you don't talk about her. And I still miss her. Well, I don't go out looking for rocks that are heart-shaped. They just kind of come. So I have many, many that other people have said I was thinking of Amy, or I saw one, and they give them to us. Or the kids will find one, or we'll find one when we're really doing something fun and we're out in the ocean. And it's kind of like she's sending us this message that she still loves us and she's around. And well, we know she's around. So the next day after she died, we went out to the scene of the accident, or the crash, I should say, and I walked down where she was laying, and it was a very, very deep ditch. And I felt like I just needed to lay there in the same spot. It's like, I don't know, like a mom wanting to hold a child, I guess. And all of a sudden in this high grass, I found this little fossil, and it had some of her blood on it. And there was some blood around it on the leaves and stuff. And I took it home, and I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do. I just don't know what I'm going to do. Honestly, God, I didn't know what I was going to do. I thought I was going to die at that time. Everybody was so upset. But I lay down in my bed, and I just held the rock, and I could feel a heartbeat in that one hand. And then of course I went about 5 times back, and it never happened again. But I knew at that moment that she wanted me to take care of my family and to do something positive. That was what she was about. The P.A.R.T.Y program is a great program, and it's really something that's needed in every school. It really is something that reminds them how scary it is out there on the roads, and how texting and drinking and driving and all that can be so dangerous. If you save one life, it would be worth it. If somebody would save my daughter's life, it would have been worth it.
Well, I had just turned 20 years old. I was out with my friends, out drinking, doing something we shouldn't have been doing. I know that now. And we were at a couple bars in Madison, and we were on our way home when during a snowstorm, a driver lost control of his truck and slid across into our lane of traffic and hit our vehicle we were in. I was a passenger in the back seat. There were 5 of us in the car. The driver had a broken leg, a broken arm, I believe. The passenger on the right side of the car, he broke his back. And I was sitting in the middle in the back, and I had broken my neck. And the person to my right side, another good friend, all 5 of us were good friends, of course. He had a lot of facial injuries, broke a collarbone, I think a broken arm. And one of my best friends in the car to my left, he was dead. The accident was so surreal when we found out later on that it was a friend that had hit us. It was snowing that night, and he was coming up a hill in New Glarus, and he had a pickup truck, and he had lost control, and we were coming down the hill. And it was very comical because my brother Dan was serving the TV Mass for Father Campion, and I also served the TV Mass for Father Campion. And Father Camping was one of the first vehicles. They were coming back from serving the Mass, and they were one of the first vehicles that stopped. And they saw all of us in the car, and Father Campion gave us all our last rites. And here it turns out later on that my brother was in the car with him when it happened. Well, I woke up in the hospital in Madison, and I couldn't move. I was really scared. I didn't know what was going on. There was bright lights. There was people all around me. I kept on asking what was going on. They just kept saying, "You're okay, you're okay, you're okay." And as time went on, I realized I couldn't move. And then they told me I had a broken neck and I was paralyzed. If you can change the mind of one child from getting in a car when somebody's drinking, or if they themselves have been drinking and they think they can make it home because it's short distance, or I've only had a few beers and in turn they've had several more than that, it's just not worth the risk to do that. And I think that the more kids that this reaches out and touches, it's worth it. When I was younger, before I got hurt, I was very active. I played football for Monroe High School, and I loved it. I wasn't the greatest player, but I shared a lot of fun. And I was very active. I loved to go out and shoot pool and play basketball with my friends and go bowling. And I lived a normal life, normal teenage boy. Lived on a farm. We had to bale hay a lot, worked hard, milked cows, and I loved it. I still live on a farm to this day. And but my life is different. I have a different aspect on the farm now. I do more of the paperwork and management, and I have people my brothers and family that do the manual labor. When I was first injured, I was in the hospital, again, very scared. I couldn't move at all. I couldn't even move my arms. And that was terrifying, I thought. And over time, as the months went by, I was able to move my arms somewhat. I got to the point where I could feed myself. I still can't cut up a steak or something like that because my fingers don't work. People see my arms at work, but I don't have my tricep, any use of my tricep. I cannot lift my arms above my head. My wrists only work in one direction. I have very, very little use of my fingers, virtually none. I can pick things up that are very light by pinching them in my fingers. I can't dress myself. I can't get in and out of bed myself. I can't drive. But I look at it also, it's my fault. I put myself in this position, so I can't blame anybody for it. And I think that people have choices. I wish I was a little smarter when I was younger and made the decision to not get in that car. But I didn't, so this is my life.
I attended the P.A.R.T.Y program in my sophomore year. Our whole sophomore class attended the program. I think it's really important for the P.A.R.T.Y program to continue because it teaches kids a lot about the consequences if you do drink and drive and what can happen, and it gives a real life perspective by acting it out, but it shows that you're not invincible, and I know that teenagers probably think that they're invincible and that it can't happen to them, but it shows that it really can. Honestly, after the program ended, that a lot of people were like, oh my gosh, this could happen. This was a big impact on them. It was a really good experience, and for me, it stuck in my head, and I would hope that for my friends, it would stick in their head too.
Absolutely would not be upset if Haley called me or her mom in the middle of the night. We've had a number of conversations about that, and we want her to make sure that the best choice to make is to call us at any hour, any time at all, wherever she is. We'll drop everything and go get her. No questions asked.
I think my dad would understand that he would want me to be safe rather than driving because he always tells me not to drink and drive. And I don't drink, but if I ever did, I think that he would definitely come pick me up and have no problem.
We got a phone call that my son had been in an automobile accident and that we were supposed to come to the university hospital. So my daughter and we got in our car, and I thought it couldn't have been a bad accident because he was just down the road. He was supposed to be about 2 miles from our house. And we got to the university hospital, and they put us in a room and told us that he had been driving and somebody had died, and that's all that they said. So we didn't really know a whole lot. We sat there for about 20 minutes, and the sheriff came in and said that my son was drunk driving, and he had been going down the wrong way of the highway and was in a head-on crash that killed the driver of that car and severely injured the passenger. He is actually in prison now. He had also sustained a lot of injuries in the car accident. So he had a broken back, he broke his leg and his ankle, and he was in a wheelchair for a while. So he's had to struggle through that, but now he's in prison. So we get to see him 3 days a week, and he's just in a horrible spot right now. You know, he was a 17-year-old kid. He got to prison when he was 18, and he pretty much went from his home life to prison life. He understands that somebody died, and it's really hard for me to say where he's at right now. I mean, he's young, and he'll pay for those consequences the rest of his life. Schools have different ideas and different programs in their schools, but the P.A.R.T.Y program, I feel, it really brings it all together. Every community, every school should have a P.A.R.T.Y program. And it touched my heart to be able to be part of it.
Certainly seems that when we talk a little bit with the high schoolers when they're leaving the auditorium, that there's been some impact. You can see it on their faces when you're watching from the stage. So, I mean, hopefully, you know, the longer we do it and the more schools that get involved, the more impact we will make. Over the years, obviously dealt with many cases. Probably one of the more memorable ones for me was many years ago, I guess about 7 or 8 years ago. There was a mom with 4 children in her SUV that was hit head-on by a drunk driver. And she was actually a relative to someone that worked in our department, so it made it a little more difficult. And one of the children that was in the vehicle was seat-belted in the back seat and had severed her spine and is now spending the rest of her life in a wheelchair. That one hit me hard because I had a daughter that was the same age at the time, so that one always stands out in my mind as you know, being sort of a difficult case. Telling a parent that their child has been injured or killed in a car accident, no matter what the circumstances, is probably one of the most difficult things that we do in the emergency department. It's definitely become much more difficult for me, you know, being a parent of 4 children. I can't think of anything harder. I mean, to see the anguish, it's my least favorite part of my job.
I think the P.A.R.T.Y program has a great impact on the students who get to attend because it's different than other programs that I've seen or been a part of. It's not just one person in the situation speaking out against it. It hits the problem or the issue of drunk driving from many different angles. Last year when I spoke, I got to speak with someone who had been injured by a drunk driver. I was there as a driver. EMTs, paramedics, the coroner, the judge, families who have been involved on either side are involved in the program, and I think that gives kids who are allowed to attend a much broader perspective of how one decision can affect not only their life, but the lives of many other people around them. I guess my mission maybe is to find that person like me in every school, that person who sat through every speech and was like, that will never happen to me. No way, I'm smarter than that. I wasn't smarter than that. It was a week before I was supposed to leave for school at UW-Milwaukee. I went to an all-night drinking party out in the country with some of my friends. It was kind of like our last hurrah together. I proceeded to get very intoxicated. That was what I was drinking to do, to get drunk that night. At about 3 o'clock in the morning, I was ready to go. I had my boyfriend at the time drive because I knew then I was too drunk to drive. So we drove and hung out at his house for a while, and then he drove us to my house where we hung out for a little while longer. And at about 5 o'clock in the morning, he was ready to go home. I told him I would drive him. He asked me if I was sure. I said yes. I drove him home, and after dropping him off, I proceeded to drive myself home. I could feel myself getting tired, so I rolled down the window of the truck, of my dad's truck, and I turned up the radio really loud. I remember turning on to Bristol Street in Sun Prairie, which is the road the accident occurred on. And that's the last thing I remember. I woke up to a large ball of flames outside the windshield of my father's truck, a smashed windshield, and blood dripping down my face and onto my shirt. I stumbled out of the vehicle, and I could hear this woman yelling, "Jason, Jason, Jason." And I didn't really know who she was yelling for or what she was yelling about. Another woman came out and helped us to the side of the road. And this woman the entire time was screaming, "Jason, Jason, Jason." Pretty soon the paramedics came and the EMTs, fire trucks, police, and I was taken to St. Mary's Hospital. I woke up in the hospital and asked the Dane County Sheriff's deputy what had happened, because you do not wake up in a hospital bed with a sheriff's deputy in your room for no particular reason. I knew all along, like I had this feeling that something bad had happened and it was my fault. The sheriff's deputy told me that in the vehicle was a 17-year-old boy, Jason Scanning. He was partially ejected from the vehicle and died that night. I had killed him because I had rear-ended the vehicle that Geraldine Johnson was driving. Her and Jason were delivering newspapers. Geraldine survived because she was fully ejected. And Jason either burned to death or died on impact. I have talked to Jason's sister. When I was in Huber, there's a program called Restorative Justice that's put on through the UW Law School, and I was able to sit down and talk to her, and that was incredibly difficult. I used it as an opportunity for her to basically tell me how I had affected her life. And having a younger sister myself, I can't imagine losing her, much less losing her at that time and in the way that she lost her brother. I took away one of her best friends, her childhood playmate, or her partner in crime against her parents, if you will. Her blood. And it was extremely difficult, but at the same time, I hope it was beneficial for her. I have not spoken to Jason's parents at this time. I would like to tell them someday where I'm at and how I am and how sorry I am. Because no parent should have to bury their son at 17.